The following video demonstrates techniques for harvesting and planting dormant cottonwood and willow cuttings. Techniques utilized have been shown to improve the efficacy and survival of unrooted materials used in restoration projects.
Alright, so here we're at a cottonwood stand, and this is actually along Mill Creek, which is the same area that we're going to be planting, which is good because there can be a lot of diversity between cottonwood species. So to be able to get a cottonwood that was going to go right back into the same creek is a really good thing. When you're cutting these, you want to look for a shoot that's pretty smooth, as young looking as possible, which you can kind of tell. Here there's really some kind of coarse, thicker bark. That's obviously something you want to use. This is pretty smooth. It looks pretty good. So we're going to cut it. We're going to leave enough of the plant for it to respond to the cutting. It should just grow back from this. So we're not damaging it at all. We're just going to be moving some plants around. So we'll cut it. And then we'll clean this up, and then we'll be ready to go in the ground. It's important that you don't damage the main pole itself. So when you're cutting these off, you want to leave a little bit by the root collar. If you can, it just protects the plant. It'll help it grow better. So we'll do this throughout the whole thing, being careful not to damage it. And when we get up here to the top, we'll leave the top up here. It'll just help promote a more natural growth pattern. Alright, so we collected these willows while they're dormant, and they need to soak for a minimum of 24 hours before we plant them. Soaking them just helps promote the root growth, gets them really start stimulating before we put them in. So we collected these, we soaked them in water at the office, and then we bring them out here and we leave them in the water just so they don't dry out before we plant them. Alright, yeah, now that we know where we're planting, we've got our pump set up. We try to pick a nice spot in the creek where we've got a nice deep pool of water so we can make sure that we have a continuous flow going through. We don't get any air bubbles, get all stall out the pump. Alright, so this is the stinger. This is what's hooked up to the pump down in the creek over there. It's pretty simple. It just shoots water right out the end of this nozzle here. You just make a hole. Goes down pretty easy. Makes a nice hole. It waters it in as it goes so you don't have to add any water later. You just pull it out, and then we'll stick a tube in there, either cottonwood or a willow pole, and that's it. Alright, so the stinger works great if you've got sandy soils, but if you run into any cobbles, it doesn't do anything. It'll go down about 6 inches, hit a rock, and then that's as far as you can go. So this is another technique for planting willows. It's called a waddle. We're going to be doing a vertical waddle right here. So we'll take a bundle of willows, we'll stick the bottom end down in the creek. We're going to dig a trench, run it all the way up the bank here, and hopefully it'll just get a nice establishment of willows here. They'll pop up. So now we've got our waddle trench dug. What we're kind of looking for here is to make sure we have a uniform depth throughout the entire trench. We want to make sure that the feet are wet at the bottom here. As you can see, we've got some standing water. That's what we're looking for. Uniform depth all the way up, and then the top can be pretty partially exposed. It can be a little bit buried or it can be a little exposed. Alright, now that we're ready to backfill this, we like to stake it down just in case there's a flood or anything that comes through. These stakes will help keep it in place until it can start to propagate and form its own roots. These are live stakes, so we just took another willow and we cut some stakes off of that, so these may even grow themselves. Stick in the middle there just to hold it and pound it on in. That ought to be enough to hold it, and then we'll put some more dirt on top of it, pack it down, and that'll be it. Alright, so here's an example of a waddle after a couple of years. You can kind of see after a couple of years of growth, moving up this way, this is kind of the beginning of a fan that we're talking about. And as you can see, it's really responded well to being dug up. Grasses are starting to come back.